Good afternoon from Japan. Good morning and good evening, wherever you are. This is Fernando Palacio, and I am going to be chairing this session for this parallel session number 3A on elevating sustainable development through regional and global collaboration. Today we have a very, very beautiful group of presenters, and I'm super happy to see some of them I know personally, so I'm super excited to hear what you guys have to share with us. One of the things that I would like to point out before we actually get started is that this particular session is very important in the sense that although the SDGs and USR are closely connected, here we're going to be talking about collaboration, the role of collaboration and how universities collaborating and engaging with their communities and beyond brings better solutions and better prospects in order to achieve the SDGs. So in so doing, the universities are actually addressing SDG number 17. So I am super happy and I'm super excited to hear what our speakers have to share. I'm going to make a very brief introduction, just your names and where you're from, and then whatever else you want to add to your background, I will leave it to you so that you have more time for your presentation. So for our first presentation, which will be a joint presentation by Joanne and Julian Skyrme. Joanne is from Simon Fraser University in Canada, and Julian is from the University of Manchester in the UK. So they together will be presenting their presentation. It's called Advancing Sustainable Development Through Partnerships, Colleagues, Challenges and Opportunities in Collaboration. So Julian and Joanne, a pleasure to see you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning from me in the UK, and I think it's a very late good evening from you, Joanne, is that correct?
Midnight.
Midnight. So we were trying to say before this, who do we feel the most sorry for? Me for getting up so early, or Joanne for staying up so late? I think I feel more sorry for you, Joanne, but anyway, we're really pleased to be here together presenting on this important topic. One of the, and thanks very much, Fernando, for the kind introduction, so you know who we are and where we're from. We wanted to start off today. Did you want to go through this, Joanne, with a quick exercise for people before we get going?
Yeah, well, we're excited to use this as an opportunity for people, participants, to really reflect on collaboration. And we're certainly going to present some case studies as well as some of the issues, and hopefully have some interaction and discussion. But we wanted people just to take a couple of minutes to just really think of a really good university community partnership, and why was it good? What made it good? What were the factors behind it? And then think of a not so good university community partnership and the reasons that you think were the case in influencing this partnership. So we're just going to give people 3 minutes just to think about that and then return to our presentation.
And if you've got something interesting to say, please feel free to put that into the platform, and we do have colleagues moderating that for us. Okay, then, so hopefully you've had a chance to reflect on the questions that Joanne has just posed us around what we think makes good and not so good university community partnerships. And hopefully, whether you've just reflected on that individually or you've been able to put some comments in the chat, I really hope that some of the things we're going to talk about in the next few minutes will accord with this, and the examples we use will really illustrate some of the things that you've said. I'm just going to pause to see if there's anything that our moderator wishes to raise, but otherwise I'll carry on. I'll just pause there and ask Fernando if there's anything come up in the forum, and if not, we will.
I don't see any questions. I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay.
Thanks, Fernando.
I don't see any questions in the chat box in the forum. And
okay, thank you.
So I did have the chance to think.
Just one other question, Fernando. I can see in the slides it's got 12 minutes on a countdown. Is that the amount of time we've got left? Just to double check.
I believe so. I was told that you have 15 minutes and 5 for Q&A. So yes. Okay. So basically it's some 12 minutes.
All right. Okay. We'll be very quick then,
yeah,
Joanne.
I think it was 40 minutes. So there was 50 minutes per person, but anyway, we'll do our best.
Is that right? It's worth checking that, Fernando, because we'll have to present a lot more quickly if that's for the totality of the session or whether it's for 15 minutes, Joanne, 15 myself.
Hold on, let me see. In the guidelines that I received, I understand that it was 15 minutes for the whole presentation, but Miranda, can you please confirm this with me?
We'll get started just in case.
Yeah, let's get started. Miranda's telling me that we're getting short on time, so can we just get it?
So first, I'll be very quick then, and just to say the first thing to note is that partnerships are really, really important. And as Fernando said in his introduction, SDG 17 is all about partnerships for the goals. So the other 16 Sustainable Development Goals, as people will know, very familiar, I'm sure, colleagues tuning in, that SDG 17 is really important, and that means partnerships not just between universities and civil society, but also partnerships across borders, between different sectors, public, not-for-profit sectors, state sectors. So that's really important. And the other thing to say is that partnerships are really about what we might call the engaged university. And I still don't think there's been a better definition of what an engaged university looks like. There's a really good quote there from Holland. I really like this. Talks about mutually beneficial exchanges, and also enhancing community capacity, not just the capacity of universities. That mutuality is something that's really, really important and will be a theme, I hope, in some of the points that we will make throughout this presentation. I'd also like to add the partnerships, really what they're about is to enhance the quality of life in the communities that we serve, whether that's locally, nationally, or globally. They should also be addressing some of the big issues that universities are well placed to address and which are based on real community needs. And partnerships really are best where there's a joint exploration of goals and interests and a mutually rewarding agenda, rather than just something the university happens to dream up. I think it's important that they're sustained, they have time to develop, and that they can be evaluated as well. And Joanne's going to talk a little bit at the end about the health of a partnership and why that's so important, to not just think about the outcomes, but also about the process as well. So we'll be touching on all those issues. So that's just to say by way of introduction. I'm going to pass over to Joanne now, that's going to say for a few minutes a bit about Simon Fraser University and then about an example of a partnership there. So Joanne.
Sorry, this is Fernando. Sorry to cut in. I am just confirmed now that it's 15 minutes for the presentation. So please make it brief so that we can fit everything in there. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, well, I'll quickly skip over this slide, but from Simon Fraser University in Western Canada, and really pleased to be here and to be a member of USRN. I was going to give an example, a bit of a mini case study of a partnership. And it's with our host city of our largest campus, our original campus in Burnaby. And what's distinct about these kind of partnerships is that every university is in a relationship with its city. It's in a relationship whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And for so many decades, we've had a very peaceful coexistence relationship with what I call sudden bursts of anger through development issues or other things that have come up. And it's taken a huge effort, particularly the last decade, to really bring this relationship around where we were the enemy of the city to where we're partnering in a joint venture. And a whole number of reasons for that, but a lot of it is mutuality of goals, assigning relationship managers, tone at the top leadership, and really identifying platforms where we could collaborate together. And I'll just go to the next slide, and again, going fairly quickly with our timing. What I'd have to say based on this, and I think a big factor was a brand new mayor coming in. If you have a new mayor, new president, that really helps as well. But for those of you that have been in a relationship that has become difficult, it is so much easier to build trust than to rebuild trust. And so I think it's these kinds of, they're long-term relationships. We're only 57 years old as a university. I can imagine Kyoto, who's, much older, but just you have these relationships. There's a cadence, there's a cycle over time. But the effort which pays off in terms of building a really strong partnership and collaboration. So I'm looking forward to the future with the city of Burnaby, and it's been a complete turnaround for us.
Thanks very much, Joanne. I was going to say about the University of Manchester, but in the interest of time, just to say that ourselves and UCL are the two largest universities in the UK. We're a member of the Russell Group of Universities, and we've got 3 goals, as well as research and teaching. We've become quite famous now for having this 3rd goal of social responsibility. I wanted to give an example of something deliberately to contrast with what Joanne has talked about, and that's a university-to-university partnership with our city, which has become something that's really thought about the governance of this and working with our combined authority. So in Greater Manchester, we have 5 publicly funded universities, of which the University of Manchester is one. We also have a population of around 3 million people, and we have a combined authority, the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, with a mayor. So he oversees, he's elected to represent around 3 million people. And those 6 partners, the combined authority and the 5 universities, have come together to sign a civic university agreement. And these are public documents. You can Google this and read about it if you like. And this is something where we've committed to address some shared challenges in our city region, where we feel our universities are well placed to tackle issues. So some examples are around inequalities, the environment, skills, health, prosperity, etc. So that's an example of something that's becoming quite popular in the UK, with the move to think much more deliberately and carefully about what it means to be a civic university agreement. And this came from a very influential report in the UK called the Kerslake Report into the civic role of universities. And what Kerslake said is universities do some wonderful work in their local communities, but really is this underpinned by a strategy, about some intention about what we're trying to achieve in terms of the goals. So that's what our civic university agreement tries to do. And within that, I wanted to share something with you today that we launched about 16 days ago, I think it was. And I deliberately again chosen this for a couple of reasons, really. A, it's interesting, but B, that it's nice to talk about things as they're in progress as well. I'm really keen to get feedback, and if people wanted to email me or find out more about this, I'd be really interested. Because we've just launched something called a citizens panel as part of the civic university agreement, because we surveyed 1,000 people to help inform our civic university agreement. They told us lots of quantitative information, but we also want to work continuously with the public to bring them into the decision making, to bring the public into our setting of strategies. So to do this, we've selected randomly, using a representative sample, 50 local residents, who will be paid, by the way, that's really important. They're paid to work with us over the next 2 years as a pilot program to work through ways in which they can influence the strategy. So we launched this, as you say, 16 days ago. It's really about trying to turn our universities inside out, breaking the ivory tower, trying to ensure that we're not just doing things to people, but doing things with people. So we're really interested in this model and what it can help inform the university to do moving forward. So they're my examples. And in the interest of time, I'm going to pass over to Joanne, who's going to start to round up then and talk about some of the key questions coming out of partnerships that we feel are important.
Yeah, these were, Julie and I did brainstorm, and we've got different experiences that we brought to the forefront, but just some of the key issues and opportunities around partnerships. And you know, one of the comments is partnerships aren't necessarily the way to go, like to think about what is the value added, because you need to put in that effort. Mutuality, if it's not there from the beginning, it's really tough to sort of work together in a partnership. And also, do we assign personnel that really manages the relationship? More importantly, too, how do we monitor and measure the health of the partnership and the right communication processes to ascertain health? And my biggest sort of lesson was from a research that said to me, the project has ended and the community is still calling me. How do we honor and sustain partnerships, especially with community? It's not a project, it's a longer term relationship. So we just wanted to leave you on a quote on the next slide, two quotes. And just really the hard work, the first quote, is just the hard work involved in developing partnerships and sustaining them. And, you know, I've been developing partnerships with industry, with community for 30 years, and it doesn't get easy, but it's so incredibly rewarding when you have mutuality and these other factors. And both Julie and I liked Huxham's quote about it's making collaboration work effectively is highly resource consuming and often painful. Don't do it unless you have to. It's not necessarily to shy away from partnerships, but to be very intentional in entering them. And we use the word partnership as well, not collaboration, not project. And Julian, I'll give you the last minute.
Thank you very much, Joanne. So I hope that's interesting. I know that people listening will be involved in all sorts of different partnerships, and we're really keen, if you feel that there's something that we've raised today that you're interested in following up with us to find out more. I certainly want to find out more about what Joanne's doing in Barnaby. That sounds really interesting, and there's lots of examples, I think, of similar things we're doing at Manchester, but that is really interesting from our perspective. So please follow up with either of us. We have our contact details where you can do this, both Joanne and myself. You please feel free to contact us directly, and if you feel there's things that we can learn as well from an example of an exciting partnership you have, do please get in touch. That's what the whole point of us giving our time today and you giving your time today is, that it's not just sitting down and enjoying listening to things, but we can use what we've learned today to take action to improve partnerships. This is one of the most important ways in which universities can advance their social responsibility and sustainable development agendas, is through partnerships. So thank you very much for tuning in and giving us your valuable time today. And we really look forward to more collaborations across the USR network and beyond. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Joanne and Julian. I very much appreciate the fact that you made it so quick, and it's a pity that we had such a short time to have your experiences. I know that you both are super engaged, not only personally but also institutionally, and I have to say I have learned a lot from both of your institutions. So I am the first one to say I wanted more time, but well, we have what we have. And before we jump into the questions, I want to point out the four important things that Joanne mentioned, which are the importance of the partnership as something needed, the importance of looking at mutuality, so both sides need to be engaged and get it going, the need for personnel to work on this. I think that this is one of the things that it's perhaps more of a key here, is the change of mind in adding resources to specifically address the partnerships. And the last thing that obviously relates to sustainability. So I think that these four words very clearly wrap up and contain what you have shared in the two different examples. Like I said, I would have loved to have more time to get to know more. Now, I would like to know if there's any questions from the floor. I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but if we don't have questions, we still have a few more minutes. So I will ask one of the things, Julian, I like very much what you said about keeping relationships healthy. I think that the word healthy says a lot about what this is going on. And this connects to my question to Joanne, which you mentioned the difference between building trust and rebuilding trust. I think that there's a huge gap in there. Can you, in like 1 minute, tell me a bit more, tell us all a bit more about what you mean by that?
Well, it just it's almost like you could be in a personal relationship, but if there's a doubt or a trust, or if you can't count on the partner, it just makes you weary, where you don't want to take risks, you don't want to, be and communicate. So it's really hard. Every collaboration partnership experiences problems. It's how you deal with them. Whether or not, for example, the city manager will call you after and say, what was that meeting all about? That you have that sort of personal relationships as well. And what I liked about Julian's examples and the one I used, it's relationships at different levels. And, I was referring to an institution, to this local government relationship, but it needs to happen at all levels of the organization. Individual faculty need to connect with staff. Students need to connect with staff. And so that's really important. But yeah, just based on our experience, and I would say it was the most challenging duration of a loss of trust, and maybe that even made it keep longer in order to regain that trust.
That's a big issue, no? Like not only keeping the relationships when conflict happens, so how you address them and how you rebuild out of that. So thanks for that. That's really, really insightful. I think that that's something that we all kind of know, but it kind of goes over our head. We know that it's there, but until it happens, we don't really know what to do. So thanks for that idea.
And just one quick, we also usually don't ask our partner, how do you think it's going, right? Like, you just don't state that. And so to be more explicit, to have a kind of review sort of process is healthy as well, because not everything's going to be going right.
I think that you very much nailed it when you said the importance of moving from collaboration to partnership, and also the importance of mutuality. Like, these two issues clearly address that issue. Okay, then I still see no questions from the floor, but I do have another question for Julian. I know this is regarding how University of Manchester managed to include people from outside into these projects that you were doing. And my question has to do with internal relationships. Like, how did you manage to build the consensus within the university to have such a project? Because I may be super motivated to do something, but my colleagues in other departments may not. And obviously, I personally know that Manchester has a university-wide approach, but building consensus within the university to have people come and tell you what to do or how to engage must not have been easy. So can you elaborate on that a bit?
Thanks for the question, Fernando. It's a really good question. And I think you nailed it when you said that Manchester has a university-wide approach to this. So lots of the things we do, I think, would be much more difficult if we didn't have social responsibility as one of our core goals. So we have a vice president in this area. We have myself as a full-time director with an office working across the university. And what that means is we can make these decisions at institution level very, very easily and in a very agile way. For a university with 12,000 staff, 45,000 students, we can still make those decisions quite quickly. So we decided to put some framing around this. So the work that we're doing is in pilot form. It's going to be over the next 2 years, and we're going to test different models about what works. So again, this idea that we're committing to something and we already know the answer of how we want to engage the public. We'll be assessing the health of the partnership as we move through this. We will be looking at where local communities feel they've really can point to things that have changed as a result, where they feel we may have let them down, and where we've overpromised perhaps and underdelivered, or where we've perhaps underpromised and overdelivered as well. We will have both features, I think, in this. And I think the important bit of a partnership, I always think of it as a really simple Venn diagram, and you've got to find that bit in the middle where there's that really sweet spot, if you like, for want of a better term, that overlap between the capabilities and the knowledge and the expertise of a university with the real needs of a community. There's lots of things happen in Vancouver and in Manchester, which our universities are not well placed to solve. We can't tackle violent crime, for example, very easily. I don't think we can research it, but actually reducing it by next week if there's an incident in Manchester, that's something only the police force, I presume, would be able to handle. However, for some issues, we're really well placed to address those, and we have expertise, and it's not been applied as much local as it could be. So I think that's, for me, it's that health of the partnership is also about being realistic as well, not over-promising things that we're not capable of delivering. I think that's so important, and that's where when we launched the Civic Panel a week last Saturday, we actually had a charter that we developed together. And we pushed back on some of the things the community said they wanted us to do. And we were really honest at the outset and said, actually, we can't do that. And this is why. And we want to be really honest with you. That's really important. So I think that is so important to the health of a partnership, about honesty, about where you can strain to territory that you feel really makes a difference, but also saying, well, actually, as a university, we're not so well placed to address those issues as well. And that honest conversation.
Well, thanks again. I am so sorry that we don't have the time. Like, I want to squeeze your ideas more, but we really have to move on to the next presentation. And again, I want to give a big round of applause to both of you on the work of your universities. And I would ask the audience for more questions. If they have them, we can address them at the end of the session. And yes, I think that we'll be wrapping this part of the session. Again, my big personal and institutional thanks to you and to both of your universities. So then we are going to move to our next presentation, which is going to be done by Clifton Jones at the changeXchange in South Africa. Clifton, I would not want to introduce much of what you're doing. I would let you do it yourself so that it goes quicker. You know what you're talking about. So the name of this second presentation is Towards Sustainable Knowledge and Ethical Societies, Higher Education Institutions Elevating Sustainable Development Through Regional and Global Collaboration. So Clifton, if you are there.
I am.
Yes, sorry to keep you waiting, and thanks.
No worries. I just thank you for this opportunity. I just firstly want to apologize for me not being on video. I'm on a charity base in the rural parts of South Africa, and as Martina from Pretoria University mentioned earlier, that we have power situations here, and that also affects our connectivity. So even though we are on generators, we still have a few challenges. So the band or my connectivity is not that strong, so I have to turn my video off. So I apologize to everybody in the session. I just want to just thank the hosts and the conference organizers, and as well the speakers before me. It was just really insightful to listen to what you're presenting, and it really just fits in with what we stand for at the changeXchange. And change is inevitable, but it takes effort, it takes sustainability and research, and all the things that we stand for as higher educations institutions. One of the things that I want to highlight in my presentation is that it revolves around leadership, and that the critical component. And one of the questions that were asked with the presenters before is, what is the good and the negative experiences that you've had in dealing in partnerships? And it's always revolved around leadership. It makes it or breaks it. And I just want to, just have a look at this, the golden circle, and use this as the basis of my presentation, and starting with the why, and then the how, and the what. And in answering those questions, the why, I was just present at the International Association of Universities conference in Dublin, and one of the speakers, Sebastian, put this forward. And globally, only 6% of people that attend universities, but those 6% make up 80% of all leadership positions. Or in other words, higher education is an opportunity, it's a social mobility, and it's a tool to shape society. However, unfortunately, it remains a privilege that a large majority of people still do not have access to. And when we are busy with collaboration and partnerships and and all the things that we're busy doing to create sustainability, social responsibility, tackling the sustainable development goals that the UN's put before us. I think that we need to remember to build bridges for those that don't have access to what we're doing, what we're standing for, and that's critical. Another point that came out is the reasons why universities are best positioned to do this is universities are traditional and modern, conservative and progressive, inclusive and exclusive. And these are things that they stand for. They're both traditional, but they're also progressive. Universities have no boundaries. They're institutions of tremendous power that transcend geographic, social, and cultural limits. And over centuries of existence, they have adapted to externally imposed regulations, norms, pressures, and have been responsive to societal expectations and changing their environments. And that speaks to me that universities are resilient. It doesn't matter what happens in their context, whether it's war, whether it is famine, they are always able to rise to the occasion and produce thought leaders, practitioners, with the goal of change. The conceptual space is global. It's a global landscape of knowledge and ideas. Even when faced with limited financial resources, universities operate from a position of intellectual abundance. Universities are uniquely placed to purpose solutions and propose solutions and develop opportunities. They are called to actively shape the local and global agendas of agents of change. Now, just addressing the how, Margaret Wheatley put out this statement: sane leadership is the unshakable faith in people's capacity to be generous, creative, and kind. It is the commitment to create the conditions for these capacities to blossom, protect from the external environment. It is the deep knowing that even in the most dire circumstances, more becomes possible as people engage together with compassion, discernment, and self-determining their way forward. And this is what we stand for in the changeXchange. We're busy with different community initiatives and partnerships with HEIs, with schools, because we want to take knowledge, quality knowledge, into the rural parts of the community and start building those bridges between the gaps of and the disconnect between knowledge bases and those that need it the most. I am part of the Global Partnerships Committee at Trinity Western, as well as Vancouver University, although I'm based in South Africa. And one of the leaders has produced this pyramid, and this is where we see collaboration taking place or breaking down. And it's in relationships, processes, and results. 3 ways that we can collaborate: through research and developing action, in elevating the roles of relationships, how different groups are socialized to relate to each other. And the previous 2 speakers have really highlighted, and as mentioned, we would love to hear more of what they have to say regarding the development of relationships. Secondly, through research and action, elevating the role of resource management, how scarce resources are allocated and who benefits from them. And this is things that we've noticed in the local or the grassroots level of community change and social responsibility, is when resources are scarce, people start to fight or have differences of opinions of how those resources need to be used to develop change in the community or sustain a community, and then collaboration or partnerships break down. But if successful management of resources are there, then collaboration blossoms, and there is the fruit of transformation with in those communities. And then thirdly, through research and action, elevating the role of rights. many people on grassroots don't know what their rights are. And even though in South African context, we have the right to education, that right is only limited to basic education. Higher education, which in my opinion is the platform for forming thought and practitioners, thought leaders and practitioners, it is not a basic right, it is a privilege. And that privilege is only to those that have, and not the rural communities. So understanding the role of rights and the rights that different groups have and that different groups appropriate to themselves. The what? HEIs collaboration elevates shared values to social action and responsibility. And as Trinity Western University, one of the biggest ways that we collaborate with other universities to effect change is in our leadership development programs through what we call FAR centers, facilitated academic resource centers, and creating these partnerships between knowledge institutions and community, but specifically the development of leadership. Because in our perspective here at the changeXchange, everything rises and falls on leadership. And as we develop leaders that allow decisions to be made, and that's something that Julian mentioned, and I really appreciated that, is they are in the position as leaders within their university to make decisions and to make them quickly regarding meeting the needs of their community and community engagement and putting systems and processes in place to bring about transformation and the sustainability within the social responsibility space. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Clifton. That's a very insightful approach to see what universities can do. Like, obviously, together with the presentations before, these ideas build on each other. No, this is all about how universities can become the tools for integration and how they become a tool for mobility and integration of the people that are not in the mainstream, like all of those who are the majority of the people that are kind of left out. So very much appreciated on your insights. One thing that got really stuck in my head and that I would like to ask you about, I don't see questions from the floor. So if anybody in the floor has questions, please use the chat box on the right of your screen next to where the presentation is being videoed. So if there are any questions, please make sure to make them there. But on my side, one of the questions that I would have is, you mentioned the need for universities to create the conditions to engage with the people outside of the campus. And one of the things that you mentioned more specifically relates to elevating the role of the rights. It does happen that people may not even know what their rights are. So I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on how, in your experience, universities can create the conditions to elevate the role of rights among the people outside of the university.
I think engagement with information, because when you walk in the street and or if you walk in the rural community and you're walking between homes, buildings that are made of sheet metal, and people are sitting outside on a mud step or in the dust, and they're having conversations, engaging and going to the community with information regarding these are your basic rights. I think what has happened, and in my opinion, there's a move towards more engagement, but as higher education institutions, we've embraced the researcher hat. We've fallen into, or not fallen into, but we've adopted that place where it was forced by governance issues in community, etc. But I think that we need to embrace and build the bridge. And practically, that would be, as mentioned by Julian, each university knows their strengths and their weaknesses, and to play in your lane, to operate in your niche, to find ways of marketing or building bridges, getting funding, because I think the other issue is funding, because to build that bridge, it's going to cost X, and there is funding available, but to create the funnels for those aims and purposes, and getting engaged on a grassroots level. And I have many ideas of how that can happen, but each institution needs to play in their niche and find a way to build the bridge.
True, very much true. Information is the key. Definitely a good way to get started. All right, I would have loved to have more time to have more discussions and more questions even from the panelists or to the panelists, but I'm getting news from the Secretariat that we need to move to the next session. So very unfortunately, I will have to come up to wrap this session with, again, a big round of applause for all three of you. Thank you for your personal commitment and for the commitment from your institutions. You're really making a big difference, and it's good that the USRN is allowing other institutions to learn from your experiences. So with this being said, my word of thanks to the USR Network again for having us and for organizing all this. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, so big thanks to the team working with all the technological issues and putting all this together. And please make sure to enjoy and keep connected with the next sessions. I think that there's a lot for us to learn and to bring to our own home institutions. With this being said, I thank you very much, and this is it from me. Thank you.